Good morning, good day to everybody. Thank you for joining us today as we talk about STEP, State Trade Expansion Program, and the grants that help so many small, medium cap companies grow their businesses. So we're really excited. We have a very full, action-packed, information-packed webinar slide deck. You will all be receiving a recording of this, and you'll get the slide deck too if you want it in a PDF form. So already some of you are asking about that. Yes, you will get a recording in the next few days. I think probably even tomorrow. And you can get the slide deck as well if you want it. So we're very excited. And just while some of you are logging on there, we can see many of you logging on still. We're going to sort of do a little bit of introductions. So just very quickly, I'm going to let each panelist introduce themselves, but I'm going to sort of start off by saying how pleased, how excited we are to be hosting this. So my name is Susanna Hardy. I'm Chief Content Officer at a company called IBT Online. We're here with Shaditra Robinson, who's the National Director for STEP, for the State Trade Expansion Program. I'm going to let Shaditra introduce herself. And James Bledsoe is the e-commerce solution center director based in the West Coast. And James has got a lot to tell and add to this as well about how companies are using STEP for e-commerce expansion. So while I'm going to let each person introduce themselves, I'm going to start off with me, with my company. So I work for a company called IBT Online. We are a private company. Our head office is in Florida, but we have offices in a couple of other places as well. And we're what's called a digital marketing company, which means we make websites, make e-commerce websites, ordinary websites, and we do online marketing. And we're really known for two things. We're known for helping and focusing on small and mid-cap companies, and we're known for our ability to reach international markets and help our clients grow their business internationally. So we've built a series of programs called the Online Global Programs, and these programs are very much structured around STEP, and they're built so that they can function well within what we're going to be talking about today about the STEP programs. And they are eligible for these and are endorsed by many U.S. states. We also are very proud that we signed a strategic partnership agreement with U.S. Commercial Service for e-commerce. And this is part of this sort of reach out and learn in that we're doing now. So I'm going to turn over to James now to talk a little bit about the e-commerce solution center and introduce himself, and then Shaditra. So James, first over to you, please.
Thank you, Susanna, and good morning, everybody. Excuse me. Allergy season here in the Northwest, where I am in Tacoma, Washington. And I'm director of the e-commerce solution center here. And what I am is an internal office that works with the local trade specialists to do educational outreach. Oh, I just got a disconnection there momentarily there.
No, you're fine. I
Uh,
think you're good.
oh, excellent. So we do educational outreach and also a WGR SEO service and e-commerce BSP service that'll be touched on briefly later in this presentation. But we also engage with many clients out there, a lot of which are using the STEP grant to facilitate these online upgrades, these website upgrades to improve their online customer acquisition overseas. So we work with these companies who are using the STEP grants successfully to increase their exports. And it's really great to see this happen. And I believe a link to our resources is being added to the chat right now. So I believe the next slide coming up. Yes, I'd like to tell everybody about the series that IBT and USCS are working on, or actually have been working on over the last year, is the Grow Your Exports series. It's a series of live streams and webinars featuring our U.S. Commercial Service trade specialist experts giving expert insights into various industries and markets on how to do business there via e-commerce opportunities and trade show opportunities and the like for those markets. So really great information there. All you have to do is register for each one of the recordings, and you can watch all the content there. And stay tuned for new content coming here in calendar year 2025 as we update it all with fresh content. Next slide, please. I believe
Right,
we're
the next one is
having
for
Shaditra.
Shaditra. Thank you. Thanks, James. Shaditra, can we ask you just to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the Small Business Administration?
Of course. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you can hear me, and I apologize for
This
not
one.
being on camera, and I had to call in. But my name is Shaditra Robinson, and I'm the National Step Director with the Small Business Administration that is housed in the Office of International Trade. The program first started off out of a pilot program, 2010 Jobs Act bill under the Obama administration. And so the program was successful with being competed to the states. The governor has to designate those states. And once the governor designates those states to become individuals for the program, the goal is to assist small businesses within those states with funding to assist them with going on trade missions or trade shows, or just becoming educated with understanding what you need or what it takes to go globally. And so as the years have went on, out of it coming from a pilot, we became a permanent program in 2016. And so from there, we have grown from 8 million in our third year to 17 to 18 million. And from there, we have now grown into having 20 million appropriated funds from Congress for the past 3 years. So the program is continuing to grow, and every year we put out a program for the states that did apply and competed in order for them to assist small businesses in the state.
Terrific, Shaditra. Thank you so much. And Shaditra, could you also tell us a little bit about sort of, the is there an economic, can you value the economic impact of STEP? Is there some way of measuring that metric?
Yes. So over the years, with our return on investment, so every dollar that has gone out, we can say the states were able to tell us from small businesses having the opportunity to gain contracts in other countries, we're looking at between $37 to $36 to one. So that has been the growth over the past couple of years, but we do have to consider COVID. Prior to that, we were up to maybe 43 to 1. So the program was tremendously growing, really being steady of us having the opportunity to travel. But of course, when COVID hit, it did really halt a lot of the trade missions, trade shows that a lot of the states were taking small businesses on, or the small businesses had the opportunity to do business-to-business meetings. So it definitely is on its way back up to gaining the growth when you look at the impact.
Fantastic. And Shaditra, let's think about how do small businesses access the grant funds, and let's get right down to brass tacks here. If I'm a small mid-cap company, what do I do? Where do I start looking at accessing these grant funds?
Of course. So what we can do, I believe there's a one pager that I've provided with the slides. So there you'll have the opportunity to connect to our STEP directory. Within the STEP directory, it keeps you abreast of every year what state and how much funding they receive. So the goal is for the small business to contact the state, fill out an application, and once they're found eligible, then work with the state on assisting them with how much the cap would be for them to utilize the funding. So some states do vary. So we have numerous activities that the small businesses can take part in, but the beauty about the program is that each state has the opportunity to formulate what works best for them. So when it comes to funding, some states can give you stipends up to maybe $2,500, and some states get up to $10,000. So it just depends on what state is offering that. So it's very important for the small business to engage with the state, filling out their application asking questions, understanding what their needs are and what the state can provide for them within the allowable cost sheet in their activities.
Fantastic. And on your slide deck, you'll see that there's also some links, both in the chat box that you can access, but also on the slides, some links we've added. Where do you go to find your economic development agency for your state? Well, a good resource would be cytoamerica.org. That's a great place for looking up, if you're in Nebraska, if you're in Louisiana, where do you find your economic development agency? You can find the full list there. So that's a good place for it. But I also wanted to ask James, sort of, on the e-commerce solutions center, what are you seeing there in terms of your companies or companies that are tapping in either to on the for U.S. commercial service? What are you seeing there in terms of returns? Are people actively looking for STEP grants as well?
Yes, actually, what we're seeing is, as you can see with the slide here, with e-commerce growing, we're seeing a lot of clients using STEP funds for website upgrades, for improvements, for fixing it, for adding content, for localization or translation services, for digital marketing assistance, you name it. There's all types of services out there for the online that we're seeing our businesses leverage for the purpose of sales. And the STEP grant is helping them to do that because it's that missing component of working capital. And I'll actually be touching on one of these success stories later that actually use our website globalization review SEO service in addition to STEP funds to achieve success overseas. And so we'll see that highlight a little bit later on.
Fantastic. I look forward to seeing that. That's be interesting. One, and particularly about the working capital means. Shaditra, you mentioned briefly already that states have, states are in control in the sense of how they allocate and what they do with that. Can you tell us a little bit more, like how much direction does each state have? What do each state have to offer for the STEP grants?
Of course. So some states, for example, so the way the program has been designed is that our goal and our mission is to assist the small business with going globally. And we do know it does take it's expensive to go to a trade mission or a trade show, just to fly there. So some states will pay for your airfare and your lodging. However, you do have you have to stay within the per diem rate. And so if it's a domestic trade show with international focus, you have to follow GSA per diem, as well as the Fly America, making sure that you're flying on a U.S. carrier. And some states don't really want to have that responsibility, so they look for the small business to offset that, but then the STEP program from that state will then pay for the trade mission as far as the registration or the booth space. So that's the additive for the use of the program. Some other states will also do full trade missions. So they'll go ahead and they'll put everything on themselves, and then the small business, once again, can just be responsible for maybe now the registration or even the offset of it. So it just depends, and that's why it's very important to talk with the state. Also having the opportunity, like James mentioned, the e-commerce. If that is one of the activities that the state is utilizing the funds for, then that is an opportunity for that small business to update their website. Also, when it comes to market media design, making sure that their labels are in the country that they're targeting in that language. Also doing a market research. Some small businesses think that their product or service is going to be valued in a particular country, but in all actuality, it's not. But if they have the opportunity to utilize Department of Commerce services to do a market research, then that lets them know that, oh, I was looking in the wrong country. I'm actually valued here. And so that will give them more insight, and it will then allow them to cover more territory instead of just being boxed into what they thought was going to be the particular country that will work best for them.
Right, understood. And just putting it out there, all U.S. states have STEP grant, right? They all have.
Can you repeat that again, Susan?
Do all U.S. states get STEP grants?
If they apply, because it's a competitive process, so you do have to keep that in mind. So not all states will apply. It depends on if the state has applied. You have to be designated by the governor, so that's very important. That's the first key. So if your governor is not endorsing for you to apply, you cannot apply. So the
Okay.
main thing is making sure that the governor has endorsed for that entity in that state to apply. Once they apply, it's a competitive process. So they have to go through ensuring what their application for the 100 points is going to average out to be. And if it's not, then they come into the program if they're over 70. And if they're not, then they have to sit out, re-strategize and come back in. So that's essentially how it is, because it is a competitive process. Just because you apply does not mean that you get a grant.
Good to know. Shaditra, while you've been talking, we decided to have a little poll and ask the audience if they've ever used STEP grants before. And it's, first of all, I want to say a big thank you, audience. You've been good on clicking on your mice, whatever, and clicking on responses here. Actually, the big majority of you are still thinking about it, have not yet used STEP grants. So this is, I hope, a really important webinar for you. I hope this is a really good resource for you. So let's end that poll. But many of you have already used it, but the majority have not yet. We wanted to also have this one slide where we showed some of those allowable activities, STEP allowable activities that Shaditra mentioned. She mentioned some, the trade shows and things like that. But, in a sense, is there a difference between some of these allowable activities before COVID and versus post-COVID? Did things change at all? Did have you seen, are the allowable activities different?
So I have expanded on them over the years. So when we first started out, we were very general with what the funds could be going for. So of course it was trade missions, trade shows, airfare, baggage, hotels. But as the time has gone on, we have seen that it is helpful, and we started doing shipping. So if a small business is going to a trade mission, to go to exhibit their product, you can't exhibit your products without them being there. They have to be shipped there. So that's when we started adding in the use of the STEP funding to assist with shipping. We've also, for many years, we didn't utilize visas. I had the opportunity to travel with a trade mission with the Department of Commerce. I think it was last summer, and because I really wanted to see what were the customers having to go through in order to get to these international countries. And so by seeing that, I knew that a couple of them needed to go to visas. I went to South Africa, and then the trade mission went on to Ghana and Nigeria. They needed visas. For many years, we didn't do that. So I was able to, talk with our legal team, and that was one of the items we were able to add. For several years, we didn't work and have as an allowable cost for legal fees for someone to review over a distribution deal. Now we have allowed that. For many years, we went ahead and we added compliance testing. That wasn't there in the beginning when this program started. We also added credit insurance that XM offers, and even the use of private credit insurance. So, the program has grown over the years when it comes to the use, but always keep in mind if the state doesn't have to use all of them. They only can use what we have, but not all of the states use every single item that we have as far as the allowable cost.
Right. And Shaditra, what about the rise of the internet? What about sort of website and product translation? What about e-commerce?
Yes, so when it comes to website translation, so just like I mentioned before, when it came to the market research, a small business may think that they were valued in South America, but in all actuality, they might be valued in Asia. So, targeting that particular country from their market research, they can then update their website to target and become localized in that country so that they're able to be seen more. And the product, individuals have the opportunity to review and make sure that it's in their language for them to understand. So having the opportunity to have website translation and localization, that is a part of the program.
Right. Thank you very much. I want to also turn back to, let's see if we have a poll. No, sorry. I wanted to turn back also to James for the e-commerce solutions center and also your rural export center for the U.S. Commercial Service. How many of your clients go on to look at to tap into the STEP programs, and what use are you seeing there?
We're seeing quite active use in it. As a matter of fact, during the delivery of our services, we're very keen to promote the awareness of the STEP grant based on availability per state. And we see quite a few successes, as a matter of fact. We call them wins, or written impact narratives, that you may be able to read about on trade.gov. But a lot of that comes through what Shaditra was just talking about with the market research and analysis of your own sales platforms, which are the services at the core of what we offer for businesses. Through the e-commerce solutions center, we offer the gap analysis service that takes an objective view of your website to see how search bots like it for international sales, essentially. And then we also have the Rural Export Center available for rural businesses to provide in-depth market matrices and market research to help you understand where internationally you should be looking, in addition to where internationally you're getting visitors to your website from. So it's a very comprehensive look at the competitive landscape and where consumer goods are going, that we provide for the clients, that is, I feel, heavily supported by resources like the STEP grant. And that's something that our clients are definitely made aware of at every chance when we interact with them.
Great. And I guess it's the beginning is, I always forget. I mean, we have a calendar financial year as a company, but I think the fiscal year for the STEP grant is 30th of September, right? So I'm wondering for Shaditra, what about current availability? There's a couple of questions here. I mean, sort of, are you at the start of a new STEP year? And also, how do they get allocated within the states? Is it like a first come, first served? Do you have to be there in October right off the bat? Also, can I put in a couple of different applications if I'm a company? Shaditra?
Yes. So the grant starts every year as long as there's availability of funds and after the competition. So every grant year, so the current grant for fiscal year 24, which we call Step 12, it kicks off on Monday, September 30th. So it is best for each small business to reach out to the state, put in their application, and yes, it is first come, first serve. So it's very important to, it's very vital that we're having this call today, the 2nd of October. So anyone who has a product or a service that they feel can be, that can go global, it is best for them to reach out to their state and start filling out those applications to start taking advantage of the current funding that we have.
Absolutely. So big takeaway from today is get moving, get in touch with your local economic development agency in your state and make those applications. And what about Shaditra? If I've applied for STEP and used it once, can I use it the next year? If I was in 2022, 23, can I use it in 24 again?
So you can. I have definitely been encouraging the states to start working with other small businesses because some small businesses have been in the program quite a bit, but we're really encouraging the state to start looking into other small businesses. Of course, everyone knows over the pandemic, a lot of small businesses were birthed at that time. So we want to start seeing some new businesses have the opportunity opportunities to come in, but we don't have anything in place right now that will hinder a small business from coming in every year. But they just have to make sure that they're, they can be found eligible. So every year they will still have to put in a new application. They can't just assume that they had it one year, go back and then try to get, and then put in a reimbursement for travel without having made contact with the state to get their eligibility letter. So it's very important that they do that.
Right. Understood. And what about sort of what's coming down the track? So we know the new year has just started, 30th September, so we're right on time there. But what do you, if you crystal ball gaze, Shaditra, and you say what's coming down the track? What should I be aware of 24, 25?
Susan, when you say what's on track, I'm not
So
understanding
what do you see? Are there any changes that you're expecting in STEP that I should be aware of?
Oh, no, there hasn't been any changes. My goal is when I put out any notice of funding opportunity every year, what I put out then is what the year and the states will have to follow.
Right, okay. We got we will save questions to the end for this, but I would love to hear right now also a little bit of a success story, Shaditra. Sort of, tell us a little bit about some of the companies that have worked with you that have had a great success story with STEP.
Yes, we've had quite a few. Over the years, we're in our 12th year, so we've had quite a few small businesses that have provided us with success stories. With this being a new fiscal year for the federal government, we are, obtaining those. That is one of the new activities that we, as our office, are working towards. But we have definitely collected success stories, and we do put them up occasionally on our LinkedIn and our social media. Our marketing team is responsible for that. So there's definitely been great success for our small businesses.
Okay, so we should all check out your LinkedIn for the SBA and for the STEP in particular, and also the website. You've got lots of links in the chat box, folks. So please, you can save those away and make sure that you're using some of those links. And James, can I ask you sort of a similar question? You mentioned earlier about sort of success that you're having. What about some of the success that you've seen in the e-commerce side?
Well, there's one in particular I'd like to highlight, and I believe we have the link for the video itself, a promotional video for it. It's a promotional video for the WGR service, our gap analysis service, and it features my colleague Lillian Baez out of CS Memphis, Tennessee, and her client Rendezvous Ribs, in addition to our strategic partner FedEx. And so it's a really great story highlighting how the client was able to leverage our SEO service for their website to improve its visibility, that increased its sales, that FedEx, as a strategic partner and service provider, was able to also assist with in that success story that we have posted there online for everybody to watch and hopefully be inspired by and say, hey, maybe that can be me. Maybe I can have my website analyzed, fix some issues with it, and as a result, increase my sales through it. So that is one success in particular I'd like to highlight. There are actually quite a few others on trade.gov. If you want to go there and search them out under e-commerce successes, you can see about 4 of them highlighted there.
Thank you, James. And again, there's links in the chat box. I have to say, I also went to the rib company, and they have a great website. Rendezvous Ribs is a great website. I really liked it. We wanted to ask again the audience if you have an interest in learning more about the e-commerce solutions center. If you have, if you want to learn more about what U.S. commercial services and what resources there are, and there's a ton of resources on James's pages there for the e-commerce solutions center. Which are, most of them are free. You can just download them, and they're really fantastic resources if you're looking at e-commerce going forward, especially cross-border international e-commerce. So, there's lots of, James, you've got your work cut out. There's a ton of requests to get more information and things. We will be sending you, emails as it goes and pointing you in the right direction. But again, thank you very much for that very enthusiastic, very enthusiastic response to the poll. Um,
Thank you very
I,
much.
thanks. We wanted to show you a couple of companies that we've worked with, which have all received STEP funding. So the first one we're going to highlight is a company called Oscaware. They're a Kentucky company, and they sell via Amazon, via Walmart, but also online directly, online other places. So lots of different areas that they sell, and they needed their own website as opposed to just other people's websites. And that allowed them to have some brand recognition, brand awareness, and therefore some guarding against price erosion and really keeping their prices up. So I encourage you, we redid their website completely. It's now e-commerce enabled, and we do all of their digital marketing as well. There's a link to the CEO, Deborah Dudley, talking about her experience in that. If you want to learn more, please check out the link, and you can learn more about her experience. But again, they got funding from STEP grants in Kentucky, and that allowed them really to help them get these great websites and this enablement. The next example I wanted to give is a company called Apex Instruments. Very, very different from Oscaware. Very much a B2B tech company. One of the issues, again, it was a complete website redesign, but they really said that they have a big interest in Latin America. So we built them a Latin American Spanish website and a Brazilian website. They have two very good reps there. And the reps were able to use those websites to really pull in traction and really boost their sales in each of those markets. Again, a company that received STEP funding that allowed them to have those international websites and help fund them and to really redesign their website and their whole digital presence. One of the big challenges is that they have a lot of different parts and products and SKUs. And this means that it had to integrate with ERPs, and it was complicated. But I think that they're very happy with the results. And again, there's a link in the chat box as well as on our website if you wanted to hear the CEO, Miles, talking about his experience, how he applied for the STEP, how he went through the process, what he did with us, and how that all worked out. And we're very proud to have them as a client. And the third one I wanted to mention is a North Carolina company. And I have to say, at the moment, our North Carolina clients, our thoughts are with you. As the flooding is terrible, but we're glad to say that we've reached out. All of our clients are safe and sound. This one in particular, Science 6, actually they resell a lot of products for the medical industry in particular, but also the science industries and science research labs. And they knew they could sell a lot in India. They knew that, but they didn't know how. And so we built them two websites, one in India, one in Latin America. Again, e-commerce enabled, and their sales in India rose by, I think it's like 30% within the first 2 months. So they had a very, very strong return on investment from those websites. And they were very gracious enough to, in part, attribute their success of being named the National Exporter of the Year to their web presence. And again, you can check out, actually, it's not Lisa, it's their CEO, Raj, testimonial on our website. And I think there's a link in the chat box again for Science 6. So these are three of our clients. All of them went through the STEP process via their states. All of them received funding to help on the international areas of their websites, and saw a good return, a strong return on investment, and really helped their in-market partners in particular. And again, you can download all about that from our website. And just to ask if there's any of you who would like to learn more about international websites, online marketing, e-commerce websites, and so on, please let us know. And again, we're happy to send you, some or point you in the right direction for some resources and such, and happy to share some resources with you for that. And again, thank you very, very much for that enthusiastic side. I was going to ask James now to talk a bit more about that. Your international best practices. What does that mean for you? And I've got a split screen slide here, James.
Yeah. So with our WGR gap analysis service, we focus on two main lenses when looking at a website. And that first comes from search engine optimization. Does it function properly as a website and show up as it should? And then do you make it clear on your website that you do international sales? So it's very thorough, comprehensive look at your website from the technical to the user interface, using 2 technical crawls and then also one-on-one crawls. If you're curious to know whether or not your website could use one of these or not, hint, I think it could, you can go ahead and visit the link in the chat now for the SEO report, the online global programs to help your website development tool here. Put in your information and get a free SEO report, graded SEO report on how your website's doing. And if that piques your interest to learn more, then I would suggest you look at a WGR gap analysis to get a further in-depth analysis of how your website is actually working. And what this service is about $100 for the majority of you, unless you're about Microsoft or REI size, and then it's $400. But what you get is a very comprehensive report along with business service provider referrals. And if you still haven't heard about the STEP grant yet, we will tell you about it again during the delivery, the 1-hour delivery, where we cover front to back all of the findings of the SEO and user interface recommendations to help your website acquire more consumers overseas.
Great, thank you, James. We wanted to know as well, if you do that, the report, if you, as James said, one step would be, for example, to go to IBT Online's website SEO tool. That will give you an initial reaction, and then the bigger analysis, the WGR gap analysis service report. You will then have a specialist trade manager contacting you. So if you would like to be contacted, please let us know. And I can see that a ton of you would like to be contacted. That's great. So if you'd like to be contacted by an international trade manager, that's someone, it's going to be someone in your state. So it'll be state specific. It'll be someone, within the U.S. Commercial Service, within your state, and they'll have that report, and they'll look through it, and they'll talk to you about the report. So that's a really valuable, practical tool to take away from here. And thank you so much. There's lots of you who want that. That's great. We are very pleased, and we hope that this helps you get really good digital assets, which you all need in today's world. Let's turn back now to Shaditra. Let's go back to some of the basics here. How do if I'm an exporter, I've never gone on to STEP before, what do I do? How do I apply, and what documents do I need? What do I need to have to hand to apply?
So when it comes to particular documents, as far as what the SBA requires for the states to ensure for us to make sure that the small business is eligible, is making sure that the business has been in place for a year, ensuring that the product has 51% U.S. content, and that they sign a self-representation form. So that's what we as SBA have put into the terms and conditions for the states to have. Now, granted, the states are operating it, so there may be additional items that each state is asking for. So that's why it's very important for the small business to reach out and talk with the small business, with that particular entity that is governing that STEP program in their state. But as far as what we as the SBA have required the state to make sure that we have are those 3 items.
Okay, great. We've added a QR code to this slide. It allows you to go directly to the website of the where the page about the funding programs from the SBA, so that you'll see more detail there. And again, if you contact your local economic development agency. I know we're going to save questions to the end, Shaditra, but there's just one I think that might be interesting now. There's quite a few companies as well. You know, if you're a sole proprietor, and if you're two related questions are you know, how small a business can you be to apply? If you're a sole proprietor, is that okay? And 2, is it okay to be a service company, or are these only for manufacturers?
So I'm going to go out of order. So when it comes to service companies, yes, the STEP program does support small businesses that have products and services. So it's just making sure that they have worked with the entity that is supporting the STEP program in their state. Now, when it comes to being a sole proprietor, that is one that I would have to do more investigation about, because I've never had that question come up, and seeing how many a sole proprietor would have to have as far as the number of employees.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. James, we've talked a lot about STEP grants, obviously the main focus, but could you just quickly remind people as well about the other resources available, the other programs, and the other rest of the helping hand that U.S. Commercial Service offers?
Yes, thank you. Yes, the focus so far has been tech, digital. Well, there's more to sales than just that. So I'd be remiss if I did not mention all of our other ways for you to spend your STEP grant funds, such as the Gold Key Matchmaking Service, our standard bread and butter, where we will match you with potential service providers or agents, representatives with our U.S. embassies overseas, and have them find those representatives for you. We can also do international partner searches, which are very similar to that, minus the in-person meeting. In addition to international company profile due diligence reports, we also have the Advocacy Center if you're experiencing issues with ports and customs. And then we also have commercial diplomacy if you feel like you are being unfairly targeted because you're an American business trying to do business overseas. That's something we can also help with. And then we also have global industry teams. So if you are in the healthcare industry or aerospace and defense, travel and tourism, we have expert experts to help you learn how to do business overseas that are waiting to help you for free, I should add. And then we also have trade shows where we have services and matchmaking meetings at any trade show you can imagine. And if we're not there, you can definitely ask our local office to see if they can be represented there to help you out. So a lot of resources there, in addition to the Rural Export Center, which I mentioned before, with their very, very in-depth market research matrices that are available out there. And then lastly, we have the Global Diversity Export Initiative for the underrepresented businesses out there. So lots of resources here for everybody. Just about everybody here. In fact, I would say it is everybody that we can provide export resources to help you from everything from finding partners to just shy of resolving commercial disputes, which that will still require lawyers, unfortunately.
Wow. So really a huge array of help from U.S. Commercial Service. The vast majority of it is free. So really, really a lot of helping hands. We wanted to group together some websites, some links for you, just to remind you of where the STEP grants can be found, where the e-commerce solutions center can be found, and those resources, but also the Rural Export Center, international trade events, SBA upcoming events. So there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of events going on, a lot of things going on to help exporters. It's all focused on exporters. So really all of that part is focused on exports, but there's a vast array of resources available to you, and we would encourage you to reach out, get in touch, as well as with your local economic development agency. We also wanted to highlight that, as James said earlier, this is one of a series of webinars that we're hosting, the sort of a step into exporting series, and there's a couple of them coming up. There's one early November, early December, and end of January. Again, including aspects of the STEP grant, how to use the STEP grant, what it can help with your working capital requirements. We'll also be hearing directly from companies, from company testimonials and things. So please do keep an eye out. We will send you updates. There'll be updates as well on the various websites that we've mentioned already, on e-commerce solution center, on SBA, and so on. So do please keep an eye out and join us again. We also wanted to sort of just round up some of the conclusion remarks, I guess, as takeaways. Really just saying, STEP grants. You heard from Shaditra. The new year started 30th of September, so we're 2nd of October today. Now's the time to get in your grants. Now's the time to reach out, figure out whether you need them, how you to apply, get your business plan up and ready, and get moving on it. So contact your local state economic development. Remember that it is a state-by-state allocation. And it's applicable to so many different aspects. As Shaditra was saying, it's for foreign trade missions, for trade shows, for training, for lawyers, for your airfare, all kinds of things. Although the state does decide, but all kinds of things are eligible for those STEP grants. And as time has moved on, now STEP grants are also eligible for e-commerce, website localization, digital marketing, the things we've talked about today. So let's now turn over to questions, and there's lots of them. So Shaditra, one question that keeps coming back, and it's sort of related a little bit to what we talked about, that sole trader. You said you weren't quite sure about that, but do you have an idea of how many employees a company needs to have to qualify for STEP grants?
Less than 500.
Less than 500. That's a great answer. So definitely a small mid-cap company. How about that? Perfect. James, some questions also for you. For the e-commerce side, what is the most common area of assistance that you're seeing, that the e-commerce solution center sees that small businesses want assistance with? What are the areas that are the biggest pain points, as it were, that you're seeing?
Really, it's the traditional solving for online payments and logistics, the business process. The website-specific issues always center on another familiar two suspects, which is keywords and backlinks, or better known as content. And so that's really what we're seeing with a lot of the issues with clients that come through and take our services.
Okay, indeed. And I guess related to that, Shaditra, there's quite a few questions about can you give us some indication of the use of STEP for website and e-commerce support? Are there any dollar limitations? First of all, that is a question.
So each state has the opportunity to provide the funding to the small businesses. So as I mentioned before, it's very important to talk with the state so that you can understand what activity they are utilizing out of what we provide, and then for them to tell you. So as I mentioned before, those smallest can be up to 2,500, the largest can be up to 10,000, but you have to speak to the state in order for them to tell you how much they are providing per activity that they are utilizing from the allowability cost that we provide.
Okay. And a related, slightly related question is, does the STEP grant is STEP grant still eligible if you're receiving other grants such as veteran?
So one thing about it, when it comes to utilizing grant funding, federal dollars, you can't offset one grant with another grant. So it is best for you to divulge that information, because you can't go on a trade mission and utilize funding from the STEP program and then you're offsetting it, say paying for the airfare with another federal grant money that's supporting. So you have to divulge that information, because if not, then you'll find yourself having to pay the funding back.
Of course, of course. But for example, if I have funding from one pot to do one activity, I could still apply for the STEP grant for a separate activity.
As long as the activities are not the funding for the same activities not being utilized.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And I guess this is a question for James. For the e-commerce websites, are those only B2C e-commerce? If I'm a manufacturing company and our primary focus is manufacturing, can I have a website that does e-commerce for other manufacturers, for B2B, or does it have to be B2C?
Actually, it goes for both B2C and B2B. The fact that there is a website means that there is some form of brand promotion, some form of marketing happening, and there should be, as a result, some form of ROI. So that then brings it into the e-commerce discussion, whether or not a transaction is actually happening there on the website, which for B2B, most of the time does not happen. It's usually on the long tail of the sale, as they call it. But that website is the beginning of that sale. And so you really got to pay attention to whether it's B2C or B2B, how does that website represent? Does it show up? Is it functioning properly?
Indeed. So we go back to our WGR report, analysis report. Figure that out first for your website. That'd be a great place to start. In other words. Yeah. Shaditra, one more for you, if possible. What about companies that are either startup phase or are loss making? Would they still be eligible for STEP?
It is best for them to reach out to their state to talk through it, because even if they're not eligible for STEP, then they may be eligible for another program within that particular state. So it's best for them to reach out and talk to the trade specialist there.
Great. That's great. Okay. Fantastic. We have a lot of other questions, but they're quite specific, like sort of, that relate to individual states and things, which I think is probably things. So I think we might be, okay. I think I know the answer to this. Can STEP grants be used to help non-U.S. companies come to the U.S.?
No, they cannot.
Okay. Right. I thought that would be. I thought that would be the answer for that. And are there other resources available for that kind of foreign direct investment?
Yes, there is an agency called USTDA. There's a representative there by the name of Brandon. Susan, what I can do, he's quite busy, but what I can do is get you his information, and then the two of you can start talking, and then there may be a possibility for him to come on and give a presentation. But that is that particular agency, USTDA.
Okay, great. There's a couple of questions directly for IBT Online, which has to do with things like some bit more technical questions in a sense about platforms for e-commerce, which is, I think, interesting. Are there preferred platforms internationally? And I think that that's an interesting question. We are platform agnostic. We don't really mind which platform you use in terms of platform-like software, whether it's Shopify or whatever. However, I would say that if you are just starting out, you're brand new, never really done a lot of e-commerce before, Shopify is a great answer. If you're already well established and things, and you have a bigger team, and you have probably more ambition in terms of upward growth, I think you should look at WooCommerce. It's our preferred one as well, um, for that. And that's WooCommerce has about a 40% market share globally, and Shopify has something like about a 15% market share. I think the most important part, though, is to really, really understand the limitations and possibilities of each platform and make sure you take the right decision for the long term. Because once you choose one, it's really hard to go back and rearrange to another platform. I don't know. I can see James smiling here. Yep. Once you launched into Shopify, reeling that back and starting in WooCommerce would be really tough. So know that each one has advantages and disadvantages. If you're a bigger company and if you have big growth ambitions, you probably also want to look at WooCommerce as well as the classic Shopify for that. Just another question we have about us. If you wanted to have websites, if you wanted to have international websites, would you contact your local economic development agency or would you contact IBT Online? You're welcome to contact either. You can get in touch with us directly. We are not involved in the grant application or allocation. So that's really up to your local economic development agency, as Shaditra has pointed out. We can help you with your online marketing, your website, but the grant is really up to the state and to the SBA. We have pretty well out of time. I wanted to give a big thank you to Shaditra for coming and joining us today and being, she's the national director after all of the State Trade Expansion Program. It's a very successful program, a very important program, which has, I think the return on investment she was saying was $1 to 36. I mean, it's huge, and it's throughout the USA, and it has helped. I don't know how many companies reach global markets. So, thank you very much, Shaditra, for taking the time today, spending with us and talking through that the STEP program. And I hope that it's been useful for our listeners. James, as always, is really just such a big helping hand. Anyone who's looking at e-commerce, please do look at the e-commerce solutions center for the assets, for the real, for the knowledge base that's there. Much of it is free, and there's tons of hearts and emojis and clapping going on, which I'm. Thank you. That's very kind. We like it. James, thank you very much for your time and for joining us today. And then to all of you who have participated, thank you for joining us, for being part of our audience, for participating. We hope you found it enjoyable. We hope you found it useful for you. You will be getting a recording of this tomorrow, and you'll get the slide deck as well. Any issues on that, let us know. But we hope that the slide deck should go through as a PDF for you in the email. Thank you all so much. We hope to see you again soon at one of our webinars or online somewhere, LinkedIn, on your website, wherever, or in person. Always happy to meet people in person. Come around for a coffee. Thank you all so much. Happy exporting, everybody, and see you all soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Deidre. Bye-bye.